All right. So, Peter, my name is Bill Carmody, and I am doing this incredible world tour with my daughter, Violet Carmody. We are going to be traveling around the world. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you directly is that your platform, TravellersPoint.com, has completely changed our game. So, I want to first thank you. Thank you for what you've built. It's incredible.
Cool, awesome. Great to hear.
So Peter, I want to share with you what we've done just so you can take a look at it. I'm sure there's multiple use cases here, but this is what we've done. It's been a total game changer for our trip. And the reason I say that is because up until this point, my daughter and I were trying to figure out how do we actually even tell people where we're going. And if you use Google Maps and you make any change, you have to start all over again every single time. And it was just like, this is so aggravating. And so I'm working with the travel agent trying to get this so that I can at least just share my travel plans. And she's the one who came across your platform. And then as soon as we started using it, it's completely changed our game.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of tools out there to that try to map out different parts of trips. Like Google Maps is clearly the big player in this space in mapping. So, Travelers Point, I guess, just tries to attack it from a different angle. Like we're really set up for like long trips like yours, I guess, where there's a lot of different stops on the trip and there's a lot of planning involved and just a lot of organizing of the stuff. And it's great to visualize things and it comes very much from that angle of visualizing trips, I think.
And that's it. So this, I'm going to just share my screen real quick. And you can
Sure.
see on this is billcarmody.com. And so this is the world tour. And you can see immediately it's your platform right here, right? So people can see at a glance the whole trip and they can look at all the dates and the locations and where are we going anywhere around the world. And it's just been amazing because if someone wants to just zoom in, they just go right in and boom, here we are in Australia. Here's where we're thinking of going, all this stuff. They can say, okay, I want to meet up. And then it's been easy for someone to just visualize, oh, well, we're starting in New York and we're going to all these places in Europe, then we're going to Africa, and then we're coming down here in Thailand and Japan and Australia, New Zealand and South America. So it's all visually fantastic. And so I just wanted this, I wanted this first again, thank you. Like this was the game changer. Now we want to meet up with people all over the world. They can say, oh, I know in July I'm going to be in Ireland. I would love to meet up with you. And this sounds good. And I can actually use the website to facilitate that meetup. Before your tool, there was no way for me to be able to figure that out. It was just too logistically challenging to say, I'm going to be here in 52 weeks, select your week kind of thing. It's just really, really nightmarish. So thank you for your incredible tool.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, you're using it in a great way. This is perfect use of the tool, definitely.
Thank you. So how did this come to be? I'm really curious. A lot of people who are watching this video, they've been watching my tour come together as I've been talking with my daughter about what we're planning. And so I'd love to hear from you. How did you figure out that this was needed in the world and then you built it? Like tell me your story.
Well, it's a long story. Travelers Point actually goes back pretty long, back to the 2002 when I started it with my brother.
Yeah.
And this mapping tool is definitely the primary focus of the platform now. But back when I started it, um, it definitely wasn't that. Like when we started this site, we had this idea of creating something like Friends Reunited, but for travel. So a classmates.com, that kind of thing. Like this is pre-Facebook, right? Like people were out of touch with old friends and so on. And we thought, well, there's this market of people who meet people on trips and want to and lose track of them. So we'll make a system for them to find old travel friends. And that was the basic concept. And part of that was that we needed a travel log so that people could say, well, where they'd been, and that's how you could, link up people that might have met each other. So we created a very basic travel log, just countries you visited, more or less, nothing more than that. And just through people's requests over time, that grew. And then we were like, well, let's make it into a little map. We can draw the routes out or something like that. And we started off with a very basic mapping system, not even Google Maps or anything like that, just something totally different. And people liked it. People responded to it. They liked this visual, like this kind of visual with the dots and the lines. That was pretty early on, I guess, when we started the mapping out of locations, but a bit more basic. Like it didn't follow roads or anything like that. It was just curves or straight lines, and that's it. And then it's just sort of gradually morphed into something better. And then the latest version, I went off Google Maps and onto open source platform for the maps. And now. now it is what it is, and it's probably looking towards the next evolution of how I can make it better and more suitable for people. Like people keep on asking new things, and I'm like, well, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And like there's other things that can be added always, of course. So I'm keen to listen to that and find ways of picking which direction it goes down is really the half the trick, and deciding what the right angle is.
So, Peter, on my very first big international travel venture was back in the late 90s or 90, actually, maybe I guess 92, 93, early 90s. And that was when I started backpacking through Europe. And so I landed in Rome and I made my way up to London. And the thing that was fascinating to me is that I would always find Australians in every country that I went to for the entire journey that I was there. And I would get to talking to them. And it's like they would talk about this walkabout. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm traveling the world for my gap year. I'm like, what are you talking about? And because in the United States, that was not something that was very common, especially in the 90s. And so I would ask him, like, oh, no, no, this is what we do. It's like a rite of passage when we leave, we leave Australia so we can come back to our motherland, so we can fall back in love with Australia. I'm like, that's awesome. So it would be no matter where I was, I would always find incredible Australians. It would be totally like, good to hang out, tell me where all the best places are and things like that. So it does not surprise me that you're coming from Australia when you built this program, because of course it's like if you want to go on a walkabout, you'd like to share like where are the places that you went? What did you recommend? It's like, so this is travel journal is fantastic, even if it's just passing down to your family members. It's like, hey, if you're thinking about traveling the world, this is the route I took, and these are the things I would absolutely recommend. And these things, nah, you could do it if you want to. I didn't find that very interesting. Is that sort of like how this thing continued to manifest as you saw this once you launched it and started sharing with your peers?
Look, yeah, sort of. I mean, it's got there's a diary function that it started
Yeah,
off with as well originally, and that sort of has morphed into blogging over the years. So there's a big blogging component to the site as well.
yeah,
Look, my background is actually like I'm actually half Dutch, half American, and when the gap year thing is interesting because basically after high school is when I was like in the Netherlands. There's a little bit of the gap year
yeah.
phenomenon that goes on. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go to Australia for a year and sort of just take a break from things. And that's how I ended up down here, basically, is by doing a gap year of sorts. And then ended up meeting my now wife and, moved to Australia. And that's the end of that. So
That's the end of that story. That's
yeah,
great.
exactly. But I mean, I love it down here. And there is a little bit of that tradition, definitely. And I think also from an Australian's perspective, traveling usually is like a long trip, or at least it was back then. Like now there's a little bit more short stuff, but it's always, a long trip just to get out of Australia, pretty
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Even the closest journeys are like, 5 or 6 hours or something like that. Um, so we come from that mindset of having long journeys and wanting to map it out and plan things. I think it is definitely part of living here. The other background actually for me is so when I was growing up, we did a fair bit of traveling, and my dad in particular was into big journeys before he got married, and he did this trip once where he actually cycled all the way around Australia. And as part of that, he created this journal, right? He like a paper journal where he wrote down every single thing he did. Like he kept a proper diary all the way along. And this was like a 9, 10 month trip, something like that, with photos in there and so on. And it's like this beautiful record of everything that he did, right? And we still now can go back and look at it and go, oh yeah, it's like this date in 1975 or whenever it was that he did it. He was in this little town in Australia, and just having that record, I think it sparked something in me where I'm going, okay, that's something that's really valuable down the track. Like people don't realize it when they're on the trips necessarily, especially like big adventures like the one you guys are about to go on. It's like you don't realize in the moment necessarily what you're going to forget down the track, right? You just think, this is a great experience and I'll remember everything I did and that's that. But you do actually forget tons of stuff that happens, even just like 2 years later. So having a diary like that, this journal that my dad created, is like this fantastic memento of a trip that, when he passes, we'll have that with us always, and we can look back at it, and it's just like this great thing for all his kids and grandkids and stuff to look at.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, it sort of it shows not just where you've been in the world, but what you were doing. What are the who are the people you met? You know, I think one of the things that's great about your travel journal is exactly that. That like I don't remember all the people that I met along the way unless I'm keeping a log. And so if I'm keeping a log, it's like okay, we met this really great couple, and they shared us with this dinner location that we really loved, and we hang out there. And oh, look at this beautiful site behind us, all that stuff. It's like if you're just taking this on your iPhone or your Android device, you know, you just have a bunch of pictures. Okay, great. What were you doing? Who is this? You know, tell me a little bit about the story. And you're like, and if you're doing that like 6 months from now, forget it. You'll never remember any of this stuff. So the idea of continuously posting and sharing what you're doing along the way helps you document the trip so that others can actually experience it right along with you. I mean, one of the things that we're super excited about is there's so many people out there like, how are you even doing this trip? Like, you know, to spend a year abroad is something that a lot of people talk about, but very few people actually execute. So part of the reason why we're doing the actual videos like we're doing right now is to share the experiences. Like, here's what we did, here's how we did it, and here's what if you wanted to do this, this is what you could do to replicate it as well. And I think that's the other part of it is that not only you sharing all of your memories, but you're encouraging other people to get out there in the world and see the rest of the world. And I think that's really important for all of us, you know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I think people get stuck in little I guess echo chambers of their own people. And if you get out into the world, you know, you get in, you just meet different people and share experiences. And yeah, it's a very important part of traveling for me
Yeah.
that we get the chance to do that.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I guess, yeah, the idea of sharing it is a huge part. You know, like people obviously want to share their travels. It's kind of I did a poll last year, sort of trying to find out from people like how they use the blogging platform and what are the main things they like about it. And I don't know, it's sort of a split between people who want to do it just to share with their friends, but also people who just want to log things for their own benefit.
Yeah.
And the audience doesn't even matter almost, but they are posting it publicly, obviously, so it does matter somewhat. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. It does serve both purposes.
Yeah.
I think yeah, everyone's doing things digitally now, so the idea of writing down a paper journal is probably less attractive to people. You know, I still like using a paper journal, but it's, you know, both things work. And
Yeah.
you know, maybe there'll be a crossover at some point where I can go, look, you can write it in paper journal, but somehow get it onto the web.
Sure.
Like my dad's journal, actually, he spent all last year creating a blog on Traveller's Point where he's like gone and taken all those things and transcribed them into the blog so that he's got a digital copy of it as well.
Great.
And translating it too, because he wrote it in Dutch, so his grandkids actually can't understand it. So it's kind of like now it's like, okay, now it's in English. They can read along too when they're ready to and they feel like checking it out. So
That's so
yeah.
great. I love it. Peter, is there anything else you want to share about anyone who's never used Travelers Point? Is there anything in particular you want to point out or tell people about it? Because the platform is fantastic. It's amazing and I love it. I'm just wondering if there's anything else you want to highlight.
Look, I mean, the kind of probably covers the features, I guess. You know, like I'm a solo developer on this project, so it's not a giant team of people. So if people get in touch and want new features, have issues, you know, I'm all ears and I'm quite open to that. I'm very easy to get in touch with. So, you know, if someone wants to give it a try and maybe there's, you know, like a feature missing that they're after, you know, they'll get an email from me in the first few days after signing up, just saying welcome and um, welcome to the platform, and they can get in touch with me personally. And I think that's how we got in touch, you know, through that. So you know, it's a very I'm trying to respond to what people need, I guess, basically. So
And
yes.
you were very responsive, especially if, you know, I was asking and I was curious about what some of the things could do or what it couldn't do, and you immediately responded back to me. So I really appreciate the willingness to not just understand that how people are using your platform, but like how it can possibly evolve in the future. And I love that you're open to all that. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the advantages, I guess, of being a small operation is the fact that you can still be responsive and and act that way. Like when you're a giant corp, it's like, you know, there'll be departments for that, and there'll be whole processes to go through. And you know, with me, it's just, you know, here's an email and and we can
Oh, you know,
chat
it's
over
great.
that. Yeah, exactly. Still, it's still simple. So it's good.
Excellent. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time today. I sincerely appreciate you jumping on with me. I know it's early in Australia for you, so thank you so much for getting up early to speak with me. And I highly encourage anyone who is actually out there planning their travel trips to check out your website, travellerspoint.com, and see like how your tool can be really enhancing all of their experiences. I have found it to be invaluable. There's nothing like it out there. I am so glad you exist in the world. Thank you for taking all of the opportunities to put your technology forward for everyone else to use. It's awesome.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's great to hear. Great to
Great.
hear.
Thanks, Peter.